Sound.
All right, so company that I've been looking at recent. Sorry?
Do we need to clap here?
No.
I'm sorry.
No. It's don't worry.
Okay. All right, we're having a lot of fun. All right, so a company I've been looking at recently is called SoFi. And it's kind of cool because it is it's a SPAC, or it utilizes the SPAC method. So we'll talk about that a bit more and you'll understand what it means. So basically this is in the fintech space. So this is a Neobank, which is basically trying to disrupt the big banks, corporate kind of hold on the people's money and all this kind of thing. And so the CEO is a guy named Anthony Noto, and he has a great resume, to be honest. He's the former COO of Twitter, former MD at Goldman Sachs, and a former CFO of the National Football League.
He's really done it all.
So
He must be balling out of control.
it's possible.
He's the chief of many things.
He is the chief of many things. So they currently have 1.8 members to date, which is
1.8 members.
1.8 million members.
Oh yeah, that's better. That sounds like our podcast.
And so yeah, it's very true. And their point of difference is it's not necessarily groundbreaking stuff. It's just taking something that's unrefined, being like the banking system, taking something that isn't necessarily customer focused, and doing the opposite. So they're focusing on speed, selection of opportunities and products, convenience, all on the one app on a phone, things like this. So it's not necessarily groundbreaking in the products that they're providing, but the experience and the way in which they're doing it is, I suppose, their point of difference. So, okay, so I'll take you back to a little bit of history on SoFi. So SoFi announced an acquisition of a company called Galileo Financial Technologies in April 2020. And so Galileo are slightly different. So Galileo, so the acquisition was for 1.8 billion in cash and stock. So it's fairly significant. And Galileo was founded by a guy named Clay Wilkes in 2000. He's still the CEO. So it's 2000, and so he's been the CEO for 21 years. He's founded it 21 years ago. And in the agreement, when they made the acquisition, Galileo was they were told to continue to operate independently. So it's not as if they acquired them and...
Oh, so it's but run yourself still.
Exactly.
And don't
so
integrate.
The same guy who founded it is still the CEO, and they still provide the separate service that they provide. So the other really cool thing about Galileo is it's basically profitable since it started. It just bootstrapped from the start. It didn't really take a lot of capital initially. And so they came to the party with 50 million customers, which was really cool. And they basically, for the most part, obviously in that 50 million, a lot of it is just consumer business. But their bulk of revenue is business-to-business customers. And so what they do is they provide basically the back-end work for these neobanks to provide the platform. So, for example, some of their customers include Chime Banking, Robinhood, which we just spoke about, Monzo, and TransferWise. So two of those are US-based, the last two are UK-based. And so they had a really good customer base in the UK as well, which was another tick on the acquisition box. Because obviously SoFi is just really based in the US. So that allowed them to expand using the contacts and customer base that Galileo had in the UK. And it allowed them to utilize, because basically SoFi is just a neobank, so they just basically provide the platform, the products, the customer acquisition, the customer service, the app, all of those things, but they need someone else to provide them with the back-end support to actually manage the money side of it. And so that's what Galileo basically specializes in. So for them to be able to acquire them, it means they can utilize their services as part of the agreement. So obviously, running costs and all these things, they're not having to pay a third party to do that. So that's pretty cool. And so that's a really good vibe. Galileo seems like a very, very awesome company.
They've brought everything in-house essentially by having a partner
Correct.
who they also own.
Yes, correct.
And yeah, all right, and it's going well for them.
Yeah, it's
obviously.
like you're working. You know, it's like you have someone who mows your lawn, and he's really good at it, and
He's
you've
also
got a lot of.
employed by your other company.
You've got a lot of lawn, and so you just decide to put him on the books instead of paying him every time, and so yeah, that's kind of what they did. And so there's a fund called Accel Partners, and they announced a $77 million investment into Galileo in April 2019. And it's a little bit significant because they've invested in some really great companies. For example, there's an app called 1Password on your phone. I actually personally use it. They invested in them. They invested in Atlassian, which is a really cool Sydney-based tech company. And they also invested in a business called GoFundMe, which you've probably seen.
Yeah.
Online.
It's like Kickstarter.
It's like Kickstarter, yeah.
Kickstarter for people who don't actually have a good idea. They just want money from someone.
Potentially.
To go to Mexico.
Okay, so the services that they offer is quite broad, but I'll just run through them super quick to give you an idea of what they do. So Neobank, they have a bunch of products, and the first one's called SoFi Money, which is just like their account. It's their money account. So there's no fees, and there's no ATM fees in 55,000 banks across Australia. Sorry, across the world, including Australia. Not including Australia. I think it does include, the closest it gets to Australia is Hong Kong at the moment.
I mean, if you have to fly to Hong Kong to do your banking, you're kind of a baller. So I endorse
it's
it.
probably not. SoFi's not really something you'd, as a customer, use in Australia yet.
Yeah.
But one day it'll get here.
Yeah.
One day we'll fly to Hong Kong to do our banking.
Possibly. Another product is SoFi credit cards. There's no annual fee, and they also provide a 2% unlimited cash back for use on their platform. So, you spend a whole bunch of money using your credit card, they give you 2% cash back, and then you can't necessarily take that and just spend it, but you can use that to pay down a loan that you might have with them, or you can use that to put in a savings account and stuff like that. So that's kind of cool. I don't know if other credit cards offer that before. I don't have a lot of experience with them, but it seems cool. They have another one called SoFi Relay, which is like a money tracking budgeting product. They also include on that credit score monitoring, which is kind of cool, particularly in the US. Credit score is very important.
True.
SoFi Invest. So this is really cool. They include on this same app and platform where you're doing all those other products, you've also got ETFs and crypto and equities that you can trade.
That's something that's cool to have in a banking product, because
Yes.
one thing I found with a lot of Australian banks,
Yes.
I think that there are two, and it's probably because of regulations and a lot of difficulty there as well,
Yeah.
but ComSec and
Yeah.
NAB,
Yeah.
NAB Trade,
Mm.
are the only two bank-affiliated, like...
Oh, in Australia.
well, they're the only serious ones.
Yeah.
So...
And it's
And
that's really just a bank buying someone else's brokerage, right? Like ComSec, for example, did they make that?
yeah.
Oh, they did?
I think so,
They're
yeah.
not ComSec International.
I think that they're two... Well, no, that's a separate company.
Okay. Yeah, exactly.
So,
very
what I'm
strange
saying
to
is,
me.
to do international, they run through a different
Right.
company
Okay.
called Pershing Square or something.
Yeah.
But that's their international. But this
Okay.
ComSec, the actual ComSec, I
Yep.
think, is run by Commonwealth Bank.
Okay.
And it's like it's a division or whatever.
Okay.
But only two. But it's something that is traditionally associated directly with banking.
Yep.
So I think maybe in Australia it's just a kind of a different vibe in general. But yeah, you'd think that there would be a lot more banks that are doing that. Maybe it's just not profitable enough. Like
Yeah.
it must not just be a good idea in Australia.
I think you might be right.
ComSec International's trading fees are through the roof.
Yeah. ComSec fees in general are through the roof.
Well, yeah, it's not too bad. Like you get $19.99 for over $1,000, but that was the typical. Like there are still brokers in the US that are doing $30 USD per trade.
Oh, really?
So and they're obviously losing customers, but
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, and then there's the people like our friend Dylan, who the way he trades is he literally calls up someone and makes the trade like that. Like
that's a very
it's old fashioned, but it's that's an expensive way to do it.
I mean, that was the main
What's that
way.
cost you?
I don't know what the cost is.
Yeah, I mean, you get the customer care. You get,
Something.
hey, don't do that.
I think he also gets.
Don't do that.
I think he
Don't buy
probably gets
GameStop.
recommendations and stuff like that as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. Like there's all different ways you can go.
Does
I
he
suppose.
buy individual shares
Nah,
that
sorry,
way?
they're ETFs.
They're ETFs.
Yeah.
But he physically calls someone and
Yeah,
says,
he calls someone.
hey, buy
Yes,
ETFs now.
That's what happens.
That's so funny.
Yeah,
I didn't know he called.
I think it's more. Yeah, he calls. I think it's more along like I think he calls. Like
Yeah.
it's definitely like either an email or a call or something.
Yeah.
And
Of all the people to not want to call someone, you would think
yeah,
that. Yeah. Anyway. Yep.
and so I think it's kind of like, oh, I've got like 10 grand now. Like, can you help me? Oh yeah, you should put it on these things. Okay, cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I'll buy these things.
It's the traditional like. That was the most common method until I don't know 2000.
Well, back in the age of not
2007,
having
yeah.
information, now we're in the information age. You can.
Yeah, but even
decide.
until the 10, 15 years ago,
really?
that was the kind of main way
Yeah,
to
right.
do stuff. I think.
Okay. Okay, so moving along, another product they offer, which is really just relevant to the US, is student loan refinancing. Now, this really interests me, and I feel like I need to research this more because it seems just insane, but it might be true. So, the average US federal student loan rates for study, right, at college, as they call it,
College.
is from 4.6 to 7.2% interest rate on these loans, right? Which is crazy because, like, if in Australia we have help debt or hex debt or whatever it's called,
Yeah. Yeah.
and there's no
Hex help.
interest on it, is there?
It goes up by CPI, so it goes up by about 1.3%.
Right.
And
So
that's
for them
essentially
to
the
have
only
a
interest,
7%, that seems huge.
Well, yeah, the reason is because it's based on they don't do it through the government, they do it through JP Morgan
Right.
and different banks.
Okay.
And think about a mortgage rate in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Like 5 years ago, you would have had the lowest rate on a mortgage in the US or in anywhere in the world would have been like 4.5%, 5% kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so probably a lot of those rates would have set 5 years ago. Well, on average, the average college student got their student loan,
Yes.
I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of them that would have got it 10 years ago at 7.2%.
Yes.
And so that's still on the books because they're still paying for it because of all
Yes.
that exorbitant interest.
Yeah.
And so if you think about it like that,
Yeah.
I think it makes a lot more sense that
Okay.
they're paying that kind of rate. And also, if you get a mortgage, you're securing it against a property.
Correct. Yeah, you're not
Whereas with a degree, you're
securing it against your brain.
Yeah. And
Um,
you could just die. So
Yes. Okay, so obviously SoFi saw an opportunity here. So they came in, undercut the JP Morgans who were taking these loans, and they do a 2.99 fixed interest rate on anyone who wants to refinance their student loan, which is great, right? If you've got a 7% interest. They do personal loans starting at 5.9%, which isn't bad. I feel like I got a car loan a couple of years ago, and it was like 15% or something crazy.
didn't you get it on? Wasn't it unsecured though?
Yeah, it was unsecured.
Yeah.
I only had it for like two or 3 months. So
Yeah.
I don't care. But I was amazed at the interest rate.
Yeah.
They do home loans, 5% minimum deposit. I mean, the US is crazy on that kind of stuff. SoFi Protect, so they do life insurance, auto insurance, homeowners insurance, renters insurance. They do SoFi at Work, so they provide a dashboard, which is like a financial hub for employees. They can see what's going on. And they do small business financing as well, so small loans for small businesses. So, a lot of products, a lot of them disrupting different facets of the banking industry, which is cool. A little bit of performance is over $200 million in net revenue in Q3 2020. And they are on track for $1 billion of adjusted net revenue for 2021, which is 60% year-on-year growth.
That's
from
incredible.
2020.
So they're growing. They're a financial that's growing.
Correct.
That's surprising.
Yes. I mean, it might be because they keep on acquiring other businesses. I don't
True.
know. But either way, looks good for the books. And then just wrapping up is a little bit about the share stuff. So what I haven't really mentioned is that they are still currently a private company.
Yeah.
But talking a bit more about the SPAC. So they're going public via...
Can you explain the acronym first?
Yes. So SPAC means Special Purpose Acquisition Company. And so basically in this situation, a guy named Chamath, who runs an organization called Social Capital, he's done this a bunch recently.
I like Chamath.
Yeah, he's a cool dude. And so he runs a really cool podcast as well, which we referred to earlier.
And he posted a Thirst Trap on Twitter. For anyone who follows him, he's a very fit boy now. I don't think he ever was like that.
All right.
But now he got really shredded.
Oh, cool.
And then posted a Twitter, and he's just like,
good on him.
Yeah. So
All power to him.
So he was getting shredded the other day in his podcast.
Dang.
By the other guys.
Yeah, right.
They were like, "Ooh, any thirsty girls, in your
Lol.
DMs after after that."
So anyway, Social Capital create this SPAC, and it's just a shell company. It has I don't know, I think this one has 3 directors and that's it, who kind of work at the company. It's not really a real company. And then basically they start talking about what their acquisition targets look like, or their merger targets. And they released sometime at the start of the year or the end of last year that this particular one was going to be this company called SoFi. And so at this point, people buy into the SPAC, which is the ticker symbol for this particular one is IPOE. He has a bunch of other ones, which are IPOF, IPO, different other things.
What does that mean? Is that the that symbol? Is that the round of funding that they're up to? Are we talking like Series A, Series E?
Oh, you mean the E at the end?
Is that what it means?
I don't know what that. I think it's just projects or SPACs.
Oh, right, yeah.
So this is E, then the next one is F.
But it's not an official ticker if it's not.
It's a ticker.
Oh, so it actually is on the market?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said it was private.
The SPAC. I'm talking about the SPAC.
Oh, okay.
So the SPAC is on the
but SoFi
exchange. No, so basically what will happen here is there's so within Q1 of this year, which is sometime in the next month, basically, the 2 companies will merge, and anyone who owns a share in the SPAC, which has the ticker symbol IPOE,
right, okay,
will get a share in SoFi.
Okay, yeah.
Because they will become one.
Makes sense.
And so why this is cool is because it's a much quicker way to go public. So previously, history shows that a lot of companies will IPO and they'll kind of there's probably a whole bunch of marketing around that and making sure that they're making the most, they're not leaving any money on the table. And there's probably just a lot of hoops to jump through and finding someone to do the IPO for them and all these things, right? It's much easier to just merge with a company who's already public. So, and particularly when it's a guy like Chamath who owns the company that's public, it has backing already. If nothing else, if nothing even financially, it has the backing of people who know that Chamath is going to invest or merge with companies that he believes in.
Yeah.
Because if you look into Social Capital, his whole stance is changing the world, finding companies that are actually going to make a difference in the world and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And companies like Tesla and stuff like that who are changing, energy and stuff. So anyway, it has IPO'd, the SPAC IPO'd in October at about $10 a share. It's now at $22.50 a share, which is about 118% increase, which is all right if you bought it. But still keeping in mind that people who aren't aware of the situation will see a change of that ticker to SoFi, and then there's every chance that that stock could really increase because people understand what company it is they want to invest into that company. They might not understand what's going on at the moment.
Yeah.
As it's a SPAC.
Do you hold any of this share?
I do.
Yeah.
No. You think it's a buy?
Yeah.
And
cool.
The reason that he thinks it's a buy is because he owns about 8 shares at a time. And so, or I don't know how many you've got on the book at the moment.
Yeah,
but,
it's about that.
But you often try and keep it as consolidated as
Yeah.
possible, which means it's a definite buy from Nathan.
Yeah.
Not that that's financial advice.
So if anyone,
disclaimer.
I don't know if anyone's interested. I basically sold Roku to buy IPOE because I was done with it.
Wow.
But the increase was good, probably 120%.
On Roku?
Yeah.
And Luke was on the last episode where we talked about Roku, not the...
Yeah, I talked about it. It will come out just before this episode.
Yeah.
And I do think it's a cool company, but I don't think it's world-changing stuff. And I sold it, and I was happy with that. And it'll continue to go up, I'm sure. But I just don't think it holds the opportunities that some of these other companies do.
And Chamath is a very clever guy, so
think
he's
he
someone who's worth investing in.
I just wanted exposure to him and what he's doing. And
Yeah.
he had a whole bunch of different SPACs at the moment, and this was one that I could believe in. And so I don't have a lot of exposure to fintech. So
Say his last name if you're a true fanboy.
Palihapitiya. I don't know. That's
very
bad.
good.
That's very rude.
That's very good. We're leaving that in.
So with this consolidated portfolio,
Yeah. Okay, we'll talk about that.
do you think this podcast really pushes you to kind of do extra research
Yeah,
and
so-
find new shares that are
Okay,
good investments?
Good question. So, Yes. One of the reasons that we like doing this podcast, or even me personally, is because even if no one listens, I really enjoy doing the research and understanding companies well to make decisions. Because as you're saying, for me, the way I usually invest in a company is I kind of like the idea of something, or I'm trolling through like different business or different companies that are public on the brokerage that I use. I find something, I love the idea of it, the concept seems good, I might buy a share, 30, 50, $100, whatever it is, and then I'll go and sort of do a bunch of research and watch it and increase dollar cost average my position on that. And
once you got skin in the game, it's a lot easier
correct.
to care about what you're looking at.
Correct. Yeah. And I should mention that there's a lot of other companies that don't even make the cut. So there's a lot of companies in my watch list that go, oh, they look really cool. But when I find something that's sitting in the watch list for a while, or something I haven't been aware of that I add, it's usually intentional. And yeah.
I've got Taco Bell in my watch list, and I've had it there for the last 2 or 3 years.
Surely it's never going to make the leap.
It hasn't. I haven't made the leap yet. I'm still looking into it. It's actually Yum Brands.
Yeah, that's
ticker
true.
Yum.
It's like KFC as well, right?
Yeah, it's KFC as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How is its gains over the last 3 years?
It's been good, actually. It's been surprisingly good.
Yeah.
I don't regret not jumping in because I've made more gains on other things.
Yeah,
but
opportunity cost, right?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you got to consider these things. That's my first point. My second point is that
he's
the
got points.
interview, the guest has become the interviewer. That was a very nice question.
True, that was a
Thank
good
you.
question.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm
Really
happy.
makes you
I'm
think.
happy to leave it at that. So cool company. I do own a little bit. I would say that it's a very, very small amount. It's a very, very small percentage of my portfolio, and but it's enough to have some exposure. So I'm happy with that.
Nice.
I like the SPAC.
Very good.
Nice. I'm definitely getting sunburned, but that's all right.
Getting better.
Yeah.